Clive Staples Lewis was a novelist, poet, academic, literary critic, essayist, and theologian. He held academic positions at both Oxford and Cambridge University, and is best known for his fictional work, especially the Screwtape Letters and the Chronicles of Narnia. He's also known for his nonfiction Christian apologetics works, such as Mere Christianity and The Problem of Pain. Lewis wrote this piece in 1948, 3 years after atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These events brought World War II to an end and ushered in the arms race of the Cold War. In his essay, Lewis addresses the manic fear and anxiety that was so prevalent in an era of fallout shelters, nuclear weapons, and political tension between world powers. November 22nd will mark the 50th anniversary of his death, and interestingly, he prayed that he would die in anonymity, which actually was granted because it was the same day as John F. Kennedy's assassination.
On Living in an Atomic Age by C.S. Lewis. In one way, we think too much about the atomic bomb. How are we to live in an atomic age? I'm tempted to reply, why, as you would have lived in the 16th century when the plague visited London almost every year, or as you would have lived in a Viking age when raiders from Scandinavia might land and cut your throat any night, or indeed as you're already living in an age of cancer, an age of syphilis, an age of paralysis, an age of motor accidents. In other words, let us not begin by exaggerating the novelty of our situation. Believe me, dear sir or madam, you and all whom you love were already sentenced to death before the atomic bomb was invented. And quite a high percentage of us were going to die in unpleasant ways. It is perfectly ridiculous to go about whimpering with long faces because scientists have added one more chance of painful and premature death to a world which already bristled with such chances, and in which death itself is not a chance at all, but a certainty. This is the first point to be made. And the first action to be taken is to pull ourselves together. If we're all going to be destroyed by an atomic bomb, let the bomb, when it comes, find us doing sensible and human things. Praying, working, teaching, reading, listening to music, bathing the children, playing tennis, chatting to our friends over a pint and a game of darts, not huddled together like frightened sheep and thinking about bombs. Oh, they may break our bodies, a microbe can do that, but they need not dominate our minds. But, you reply, it is not death, not even painful and premature death that we're bothering about. Of course the chance of that is not new. What is new is that the atomic bomb may finally and totally destroy civilization itself. The lights may be out forever. This brings us much nearer to the real point. But let me try to make clear exactly what I think that point is. What were your views about the future of civilization before the atomic bomb appeared on the scene? What did you think all this effort of humanity was to come to in the end? The real answer is known to almost everyone who has even a smattering of science, yet oddly enough it's hardly ever mentioned, and the real answer is, with or without atomic bombs, the whole story is going to end in nothing. The astronomers hold out no hope that this planet is going to be permanently inhabitable. The physicists hold out no hope that organic life is going to be a permanent possibility in any part of the material universe. Not only this earth, but the whole show. All the suns of space are to run down. Nature is a sinking ship. It does not in the long run favor life. If nature is all that exists, in other words, if there is no God and no life of some quite different sort somewhere outside nature, then all stories will end in the same way. In a universe from which all life is banished without possibility of return. It will have been an accidental flicker, and there will be no one even to remember it. Oh, no doubt atomic bombs may cut its duration on this present planet shorter than it might have been, but the whole thing, even if it lasted for billions of years, must be so infinitesimally short in relation to the oceans of dead time which precede and follow it, that I cannot feel excited about its curtailment. What the wars and the weather and the atomic bomb have really done is to remind us forcibly of the sort of world we are living in and we're beginning to forget. And this reminder is, as far as it goes, a good thing. We have been waked from a pretty dream, and now we can talk about realities. We at once see that the important question is not whether an atomic bomb is going to obliterate civilization. The important question is whether nature, the thing studied by the sciences, is the only thing in existence. Because if you answer yes to the second question, then the first question only amounts to asking whether the inevitable frustration of all human activities may be hurried on by our own action instead of coming at its natural time. Oh, that is, of course, a question that concerns us very much. Even on a ship which will certainly sink sooner or later, news that the boiler might blow up now would not be heard with indifference. But those who knew that the ship was sinking would not be quite so desperately excited as those who had forgotten this fact and were vaguely imagining that it might arrive somewhere. It is then, on the second question, that we really need to make up our minds. And let us begin by supposing that nature is all that exists. Let us suppose that nothing ever has existed or ever will exist except this meaningless play of atoms in space and time. And that by a series of 100th chances, it has regrettably produced things like ourselves. Conscious beings who now know that their own consciousness is an accidental result of the whole meaningless process, though to us, alas, it feels significant. In this situation, there are, I think, three things one might do. You might commit suicide. Nature, which has blindly given me for my torment this consciousness which demands meaning and value in a universe that offers neither, has luckily also given me the means of getting rid of it. I return the unwelcome gift. I will be fooled no longer. Secondly, you might decide simply to have as good a time as possible. The universe is a universe of nonsense. But since you're here, grab what you can. Unfortunately, there is, on those terms, so very little left to grab. Only the coarsest sensual pleasures. Oh, you can't be in love with a girl if you know that all the beauties of both her person and her character are a momentary and accidental pattern produced by the collision of atoms, and that your own response to them is only a sort of psychic phosphorescence arising from the behavior of your genes. Or third, You may defy the universe. You may say, let the universe be irrational. I am not. Let it be merciless. I will have mercy. By whatever curious chance it has produced me, now that I'm here, I will live according to human values. Oh, I know the universe will win in the end. But what is that to me? I will go down fighting. Amid all this wastefulness, I will persevere. Amid all this competition, I will make sacrifices. Oh, be damned to the universe. Now, I suppose that most of us, while we remain materialists, will adopt a position that alternates between the second and third attitude. Well, the third is incomparably better and more likely to preserve civilization, but both shipwreck on the same rock. And that rock is that we will want to hold up our own standards against the idiocy of the universe. We will talk as if our own standards were something outside the universe. But if nature is the only thing in existence, then of course there can be no other source for our standards. Far from being a light from beyond nature, whereby nature can be judged, our human nature is only the way in which anthropoids of our species feel when the atoms under our own skulls get into certain states. Those states being produced by causes quite irrational and unhuman. Thus, the very ground which we define nature crumbles under our feet. For most modern people, thoughts of this kind have to be gone through before the opposite view can get a fair hearing. All naturalism leads to a quite final and hopeless discord between what our minds claim to be and what they really must be if naturalism is true. Oh, they claim to be spirit, that is to be reason, perceiving universal intellectual principles and moral laws and possessing free will. But if naturalism is true, our minds must in reality be merely arrangements of atoms and skulls. We never think a thought because it is true, only because blind nature forces us to think it. We never do an act because it is right, only because blind nature forces us to do it. It is when one has faced this preposterous conclusion that one is at last ready to listen to the voice that whispers. But suppose we really are spirits. Suppose we are not the offspring of nature. For really, the naturalistic conclusion is unbelievable. If science teaches us that our own minds are chance arrangements of atoms, there must be some mistake. Because if that was so, then the sciences themselves would be chance arrangements of atoms, and we should have no reason for believing in them. There's only one way to avoid this deadlock. We must go back to a much earlier view. We must simply accept it that we are spirits, free and rational beings inhabiting an irrational universe, and must draw the conclusion that we are not derived from it. We are strangers here. We come from somewhere else. Nature is not the only thing that exists. There is another world, and that is where we come from. All that we say about nature, red in tooth and claw, about death and time, and our half-bashful attitude toward our own bodies, is quite inexplicable on the theory that we're simply natural creatures. If this world is the only world, how did we come to find its laws so dreadful or so comic? If there is no straight line elsewhere, how did we discover that nature's line is crooked? What then is nature? And how did we come to be imprisoned in a system so alien to us? Oddly enough, the question becomes much less sinister the moment one realizes that nature's not all. Oh, mistaken for our mother, she's terrifying. But if she's only our sister, if she and we have a common creator, then the situation is quite tolerable. Nature is indeed a rough playfellow. There are elements of evil in her. Oh, to explain that would carry us far back. I should have to speak of powers and principalities, and all that would seem to a modern person most mythological. But this is not the place, nor do these questions come first. It is enough to say here that nature, like us, is alienated from her Creator, though in her, as in us, gleams of the old beauty remain. It is our business to live by our own law, not by hers, to follow in private and in public life the law of love and temperance, even when they seem to be suicidal. And not the law of competition and grab, even when they seem to be necessary for our survival. For it is part of our spiritual law never to put survival first. We must resolutely train ourselves to feel that the survival of man on this earth is not worth having unless it can be had by honorable and merciful means. Nothing is more likely to destroy a species than a determination to survive at all costs. Those who care for something else more than civilization are the only people by whom civilization is at all likely to be preserved. Those who want heaven most have served earth best. On Living in an Atomic Age by C.S. Lewis.